When I was a kid, I got one of those paint by numbers kits. One of the ones where the canvas is covered in those tiny little shapes with numbers in them, and there's a stray of paint and the picture on the box. It shows you exactly what it's supposed to look like when you're done. And you fill in the numbers one color at a time, and after a while, it looks pretty much like it does on the box. It might be technically correct, but it's also a little flat. So I've spent my career helping companies with their marketing and go-to-market issues, and I see exactly the same thing when it comes to their strategies. A lot of them are paint by numbers. Everything's filled in. Their ICP, the positioning, the messaging, the funnel, all the metrics, it's all technically correct, but something's missing, and buyers look at it and feel nothing. So let me take a quick step back. Go-to-market frameworks exist for a good reason. Developing and executing one is complicated, and frameworks bring order to that chaos. A founder or a new CMO can just pick one up and start building something structured right away. And if I'm being honest, even a paint by numbers go-to-market strategy beats guesswork or a few sales slides, pulled from last year's offsite strategy session. So frameworks actually make strategy possible for a lot of companies. The problem isn't the framework, it's really how we judge whether or not it's working and how we evaluate whether it did what we wanted it to do. So a framework can tell you what to do, but it can't tell you what those decisions actually feel like on the other side. And that's exactly where go-to-market strategies break down. So the best way I found to describe this gap is the concept of resolution. Think about that paint by numbers kit, right? It's low resolution. It's defined just by those shapes that you filled in. And same thing in terms of a go-to-market strategy. If it's paint by numbers and framework driven, a lot of times it's a low resolution strategy. Everything's technically correct, but nothing is sharp. The message is clear, but maybe generic, right? The demo explains the product, but doesn't create any kind of urgency or conviction. The strategy exists, but the experience it's delivering or you're delivering falls flat. So a high resolution go-to-market strategy is the opposite. It's the same strategy, but it's translated all the way down to the hundreds of small little moments across the buyer journey so that everyone actually reinforces the story you're trying to tell instead of quietly contradicting it or diluting it. Your strategy doesn't just exist on paper, but buyers can actually feel it and experience it. And here's why that matters actually more than ever. AI, basically. So if in a world where anybody can download the same templates and kind of use the same tools and use the same playbooks, structure isn't an advantage anymore. Everybody has structure and everybody can access that, and resolution becomes the advantage. So how do you know if you have a low resolution go-to-market strategy? Well, from what I've seen, your messaging makes sense, but the next competitor, it basically is undifferentiated from the competitor, right? Or maybe some of your reps convert better than the rest because they're basically improvising what buyers need to hear instead of getting it from the strategy. Or sometimes the demo is really nothing more than kind of a logical product tour, right? But it doesn't change how it doesn't resonate with the buyer or change how they think about their problem. And so each one of these is basically a place where that kind of low resolution is undermining the goals of the strategy. And I mentioned AI earlier, basically everybody's using it to do more outreach, more personalization, and do everything faster and with fewer resources, but it doesn't raise your resolution. It actually scales whatever resolution you already have. So my point is that using AI with a flat paint by numbers strategy just produces more flatness, but it does it faster and at probably more efficiently. But if used well, AI should amplify your differentiation and clarity and not amplify your sameness. So if you take one thing from this, the real measure of your go-to-market strategy isn't really what you've defined or executed, but rather the experience your company actually delivers across all of the interactions with the buyer. And if you're not sure those two things match, then ask yourself, if I stepped outside of my role and I experienced my own company as a buyer, would it match the strategy I think I'm running? And if the answer is no, the fix usually isn't another framework. It's raising the resolution of the one you already have. And that's really the problem I spent most of my time on. I've created a structured way to find exactly where a strategy goes low resolution across the journey and why. And if any of this sounded like your company or feels familiar, reach out. I'd actually genuinely enjoy walking you through kind of my thinking and give you my thoughts on maybe where you could improve the execution of your strategy. Thanks.